get into the afternoon, the cloud cover will start to fill back in again and the wind will be brisk from time to time. That's just going to take the edge off the temperatures, but in sheltered spots in the sunshine, 10 Celsius.
Allan Beswick with you on the phones.
0161 228 2255.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Oh, yeah. You all right? Good-o. 2/3 of Britons don't know their basic geography and are unable to name the countries that make up Great Britain. Extraordinary. Well, there you are. And baffled Britons are also vague when it comes to languages. 51% believe English is the most spoken language. But it's not, apparently. It's Mandarin Chinese, which is very good. Don't they come in tins? Oh, no, they're Mandarin oranges. I used to like them when I was little. Yeah, I think... I probably still do. Aren't they just tangerines, mandarins? I don't know. I've no idea. You used to get tangerines at this time of year, but you never see them now. They're always something else. They're always like other things. Small, orangey things. Aren't they? Yeah, what are them others? You get... Yeah, they're not as good. I used to like tangerines because you just had to blow them and the skin fell off. I like that. I'm a bit lazy, as you may have gathered. But how come... Now I think of it, how come you get mandarin oranges in tins, but you don't get mandarin oranges nor in tins? You don't get mandarin oranges, do you? Well, no, you get peas, frozen, in tins, and out of tins. Is it? Oh, look, there's a pea. You see? Or you can get pears. They're in tins. You get them in tins. And they have them out of tins. Of course you do. So why don't they have mandarin oranges out of tins? I don't understand that. Life is complicated when you mean, but there you are. Right, 0161 228 2255. What do you want to talk about? You can talk about anything, I'm not bothered. The B of the bang, or the C of the clang, as we call it. What? Oh, yeah, not in Mandarin, no. But what, anything you like, really. Yeah, the B of the bang. Or... the B of the bugger, as it's now called, because it's falling to bit. What we want to know is, they've got 1.7 million quid from court. Well, not from court as it happens, they settled out of court, but that's probably the best way of doing it, but 1.7 million quid. Now, frankly, if they just decide, well, we'll cut it down then, they get a rag and bone man in with an hacksaw, and he can have the thing gone in a fortnight. It'll cost nothing, because they'll get all the metal for the scrap, all the money for the scrap metal. So they could do that. Or they could spend the whole of the £1.7 million making sure it stays up and bits don't fall off, which is probably not the most economic, but perhaps the most artistic response. And it does still mean we'll have the B of the bang, but it's kind of lost its effect now, hasn't it? Because when we first got it, it was the tallest artistic sculpture in Britain. But it's not anymore. They built something bigger than it. So it's stuffed, isn't it? It's second. And nobody remembers who comes second, do they? No, when you think about it, that's the whole essence of the B of the bang, isn't it? The B of the bang was all about Linford Christie being and banging as he took off, starting his fast-running thing. Yeah. So if he'd have spent his time coming second, who amongst us would have heard of him? None of us. Nobody remembers who comes second or cares. But there you are. Kevin says, now that it's generally agreed the B of the bang should be renamed the C of the crap, those responsible for it use the excuse the B of the bang sculpture was an ambitious and groundbreaking design. Yes, it was, says Kevin, as were many more structures built around Manchester, the difference being that they didn't start falling to pieces within days of being paid for. Why not remodel what's available? If all the spikes were removed, I'm sure somebody, other than the original team, could design a structure utilising the spikes, possibly standing them upright to form something more secure. That'd be nice. You could make a fence out of it. Make a lovely fence, that. Can I have it for our back gate? We're told often enough that Manchester is awash with talent, so here's an opportunity to prove it. As to a work of art, I think the stadium itself needs no embellishment. It's a marvel of design, engineering and build. So there you see, a complimentary matter from Kevin. We don't get many of them. Let's make the most of it.
If you have internet access, you can now switch to getting your TV licence delivered to you by email. With Licence by Email, your TV licence is sent to your inbox instead of your letterbox. It's quicker and more convenient. It's peace of mind, but without the piece of paper. For more information about Licence by Email, please visit the TV licensing website at tvlicensing.co.uk. .co.uk.
I did that. Mine never arrived. Money's gone. We've got the money. No licence. When the bloke knocks at the door, I'm just going to show him me checkbook and say, there it is. Never arrived. But I'm just assuming, because I haven't had the letters, you know them snotty letters you get, and they threaten to come round and put your arm up your back until you say lacquerai. Well, I've not had any of them, so I'm presuming that it's all gone according to what laughingly follows as a plan. But frankly, I can't be entirely sure. But you just get worn down by it all, don't you? And eventually you just think, sorry, I'm not bothering. I'm not going through any more of that. I'm not. It's like, yeah, I'll tell you this story. It's not that interesting. But I'll tell you anyway because I don't care. But I got a letter, apropos of nothing. Nothing. I've had this credit card. I've got a couple of credit cards, and there's one that I use very rarely. I only use it to pay big bills, really big bills. So if you get a bill, you know, like we had a bathroom done recently, quite a lot of big bills in that, and I used it for that. And then when the bill comes in, you pay it off so that you don't pay a lot of interest. Or, in fact, any interest. And I've had this credit card for, I don't know, probably 20 years. And I got a letter from nowhere. Well, from the credit card company, obviously. And it said, we've reduced your credit limit, you know, the limit on the card. We've reduced it by this much to this much. And I thought, well, it doesn't matter, I've got another one. And then I thought, well, why have they reduced it? Why have they reduced it? So I phoned them up. And I said, why have you reduced this credit limit on this credit card bill? And their answer was, check with the credit reference agencies. And I said, well, I don't need, you know, my credit reference agency. It hasn't changed. This is what it might have done. So, all right, I'll check. So I registered with the credit reference agency and I checked that. Cost me about £9 in all by the time I got the full report. Nothing had changed. So I got in touch with the other one, because there's two main ones. I got it was about £9, £8.99 I think it was. And I got the full report from them. Nothing's changed. And I got back onto the credit card company and I said, well, I've done this, and it comes back that I'm a perfect, you know, I'm perfectly legitimate. My credit rating is high. So they said, oh, right, well, send us copies of the credit reference agency report. So, all right, I sent that. And then back came the reply, thank you very much, we're dealing with it, you know. After a fortnight, I rang them up and said, what's going on? They said, well, send us your last 3 months' bank statements. So I thought, in for a penny, in for a pound. So I sent the last 3 months' bank statements. And then I got a letter, and it didn't say, it said we're dealing with it. And then I noticed when my next credit card bill came in, the credit limit had gone back to where it was before. Never an apology, never a change or anything. So they went through all that palaver. And so I wrote to them and cancelled the card. Because I hardly ever used it anyway, and I'll get another, it doesn't matter. But you just think, who are these half-wits that run these organisations? And is it any wonder that they're all going to the wall? They're run by cretins. Banks are run by cretins at quite a lot of levels. 0161 228 2255. You got something to say? Manchester would love to hear it. Brian in Stockport. Hiya, Brian.
Morning, Alan. Thanks for taking the call.
My pleasure.
Couple of controversial reports, one in a national paper and one on a radio programme, was about the recycling that we all seem to be very keen on doing now. One report was that a lot of several councils are actually reportedly or allegedly putting recycled materials just into landfills because they can't cope with them. Another report is that because of the world recession and the drop on prices of raw materials and recycled materials, they're actually having to store in ex-military camps a lot of the recycled goods till the prices go up and people will buy them again. That's disturbing, but the biggest one is the report where a lot of our metals, mainly metals and plastics, are shipped out to China for them to produce into whatever consumers want. Now, surely to ship heavy goods like metals out to China is creating one heck of a huge carbon footprint, and then to sell the stuff to China, which is allegedly one of the biggest polluters in the world, seems almost not a waste of time, but wiping out the good work that we're all doing by saving, by being careful, by recycling, to give these polluters the chance of polluting even more.
Yeah, it's one of these things where you've got to sometimes take a step back in order to take the larger step forward.
Oh, I understand. By actually scarring the earth and digging out raw materials, ores, that is dreadful in itself, but it's a necessity in a lot of cases.
Well, that wasn't... I mean, I'm glad you recognise that, but I want the necessity of it. But I wasn't referring to that. I mean, just the simple thing. If the local authority says, right, we want you to recycle, but before it says that, it puts in place all the facilities to deal with the recycled material.
Yep.
It means that once the facility's open, they then say, OK, we've now got this £50 million facility for dealing with recycled or dealing with rubbish in a recycled way, and we now want you to start using it, and it takes 20 years for that to happen.
I understand
Because
that,
it does.
yeah.
So what they do is they say, right, start recycling now. And they don't make a song and dance of it, but one or two documentary makers have made a song and dance, and start it now. And we sometimes end up not able to deal with it, but that's because the local authorities and others are following the increase in recycling rather than investing in it up front.
I understand that. You reap the benefits later on.
Indeed, yes.
Yeah, but like I say, the actual physical effort, the carbon footprint, as they call it, of shipping China, and then for China to do this mass polluting like they do, they don't seem to. I know they're trying to reduce the carbon footprint, but they are still allegedly, alongside America, the biggest polluters. And it seems such a criminal effort to go to such an effort on our part for them to just pollute even more.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm afraid you're talking to the wrong man, because I think quite a lot of what we're doing, particularly in this country, is frankly pointless.
Yeah.
If this country reduced its carbon footprint to zero, and it's not going to, if this country reduced its carbon footprint to zero, the effect on the worldwide carbon footprint would not be noticeable.
No.
You couldn't spot it because we make such a small contribution to the overall effect. Now, that's not to say just the stuff we do. That's everything that we have to do. And there's more trouble from cows burping than there is from power stations, and we're not about to change that. So if we're really serious about the carbon footprint, the government should pass legislation today that no one eats meat.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see, though, or to hear from anybody, your listeners that really are into this recycling, to see what their comment is, to see what their view on shipping out to major polluters, what they think of it. Can I squeeze another comment in?
Please do. You squeeze away.
I listened to a play on Radio 4, BBC 4 yesterday.
Good heavens.
And I know, it's a good programme. And it was about a young man who burgled a house and knocked an old lady down, and he had incredibly vivid red hair, and the old lady...
The twin brother.
Yeah.
I heard it.
It
was in the car driving home. Go on.
Right. Well, I mean, what would happen... in this particular case, one brother was found out and prosecuted because he smoked, and the other brother didn't. That was the fact that caught the twin out that committed the crime.
These were identical twins. That's important.
Identical, totally identical, and DNA matches as well. But what would happen in real life if that situation, and they couldn't sort out which brother had actually committed the crime?
Whichever one they charged. And they might have charged both. Whichever one they charged would be found not guilty.
Yes, but how could they charge without proof with them being identical and both providing good alibis?
That would be down to the... I mean, we better just in précis say what the story was. A witness saw a lad running out of a room where a woman had been pushed over, and that lad was then arrested. He said he was nowhere near the place, and they then brought another lad in who was his twin brother, and there were all sorts of family stories, but the overwhelming element of evidence was DNA at first, and of course the DNA was identical for both boys, so they couldn't have got a conviction. Now they went on and they had a fingerprint, I think it was, and they also had some other stuff about one of them was a smoker, the other wasn't, and the smoker was the guilty party. So there was something to distinguish them evidentially. But in the case of the only evidence you've got is DNA, if there is an identical twin, the DNA evidence is useless. Now, the Department of Prosecutions might bring the case because there might be circumstantial evidence in support of that places person A rather than person B at the scene. But if the prosecution in its argument relied heavily on the DNA, then the defence would say the DNA is utterly invalidated because that only says one of these two was there. It doesn't say which one. And if that was the main evidence, the man would have to be found not guilty because there is doubt. So they'd need, like in the play yesterday, they would need other evidence to sort out which of the two. They've got evidence that puts one of the two there, or possibly even both, so then they need evidence to separate the two.
Yeah, difficult.
Well, it was a play, but there has been a case in the United States where a killer has walked free because they cannot say which one of them did it. They just know that one of them did.
Yeah.
And, of course, they each know, but they would each say that they don't.
Anyway.
Or that they didn't. Good on you, Brian.
Thanks, Alan.
Have a good day, mate. 0161228 2255. If you've something to say, that's good. First it was the B of the bang, then the C of the clang. Now it's the S of the scrap. Lewis in Bolton, what's he on about? Alan, the B of the bang certainly was groundbreaking. Head-breaking too, if you were close by. That's Derek in Lee. And the B of the bang, does the B stand for balls up? That's Russ in Lee. You are all so harsh. It's just gone 20 past 12. Oh, there goes another one. Just gone 20 past 12 on BBC Radio Manchester. Mark Edwardson's got the headlines.
You've just heard, could B of the bang be bulldozed? Manchester City Council says it's one of the options that will be considered for the troubled sculpture. The pound in your pocket or purse is under less pressure than anticipated after inflation fell last month, but at 4.5%, it's still twice the government's target. And the BBC's Director General Mark Thompson has come under fire from MPs following last month's controversial broadcast on BBC Radio 2's The Russell Brand Show. Manchester's weather, sunny and dry, highs of 10 Celsius.
You've spent hours at the dictionary looking through the B's for bulldozed, haven't you, to get the alliteration.
BBC Radio Manchester, 2020 traffic.
Still going on this one, it's in Horwich. It's the road closure, Lee Lane, closed at the junction of Winterhay Lane after an accident which involved a pedestrian. Investigation work now underway. The road is going to remain closed until at least 3 p.m. later on. The M6 looking good, actually, through the roadwork section where we've got narrow lanes. Junctions 27, that's Standish, to 28 at Leyland, heading out there. It seems to be fine with no problem showing up looking at the speed sensors. Anything else you spot, you can call in. It's 0161 244 4951. I'm Orna Merchant.
You're never more than 20 minutes away from the latest traffic through the day.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Jack from Bolton says, "Hi Alan, my bone of contention is adults smoking in cars whilst in charge of kids. Also, mothers pushing a pushchair with a cig in her mouth. It's this what drives the kids to smoke. Kind regards, Jack from London." Well, certainly people from London. That's surely Lowton. Oh, well, there you go. No, it was neither London nor Lowton. It was Bolton, but it rhymed. I don't know why I said London. Oh, Jack London, Call of the Wild. That's what it was. Cracking up. But, yeah, I mean, it is a problem. There is statistical evidence that in homes where the families smoke, children are more likely to do so. Although, having said that, we were brought up in a house where my mother smoked, and neither me, my brother, or my sister smoke. So there's always the odd one out, isn't there? 0161 228 2255. If you've something to say, then feel free. At the back end of the 2 hours yesterday, just before Becky came along, we were talking inevitably about organ donation, and it's such an important subject. We're talking about human life, we're talking about human rights, we're talking about... Do you remember that play many, many years ago? I've seen it a few times. The play was called Whose Life Is It Anyway? It was all about whose life it was, whether a person should be able to invite euthanasia, as it were. And that row continues. But the play was Whose Life Is It Anyway? A fantastic play. Well, I suppose this debate is whose body is it anyway? OK, it's my body when I'm alive, and you can't have any of it. The hairdresser needs permission just to cut my hair, so it's my body. But once I'm dead, who does it belong to? Can't belong to me, because I'm no longer a human being. The body is still there, but whatever happens at death, and I have some thoughts on that myself, but whatever happens at death, it ceases to have any rights. You no longer own property. And that's why we talk about the estate of the deceased rather than the property of the deceased. You no longer owe money. Your estate may do so, but you do not. And if your estate, the residue of your life, the fiscal residue of your life, is too small to pay your debts, then your debts are dead. Nobody else is responsible for them in general terms, because you're no longer a person. You're not a person. If you're not a person, you can't own it. Rather like a cow doesn't own its body, we do. Hence our ability to kill it and eat it. So we don't own our bodies when we are dead. But who does? The state? Well, some would like the state to be the owner. One of them who actually face this in a slightly different way. We were talking about, obviously, post-deceased donation, but there are some people who donate their organ, usually just the kidney, because the heart's kind of fatal, usually donate an organ before they die. Eileen from Sale was one such person. She was a live donor when she donated a kidney to save her brother's life. This is what you missed if you tuned out early yesterday. This is Eileen, a live donor.
What happened, my brother just was nothing wrong with him, and then it all happened very quickly. They found out he just had a water test or something, and I think it was phosphorus in his water. Went to Manchester Royal, told him that both his kidneys were failing, and they could only give him 6 months. Now, I can't remember exactly, but even dialysis wasn't going to work for him. He was quite bad.
Yeah.
So, of course, he said a sister, they asked him about the family. My eldest brother had already had a serious accident, parents too old. So he said, I've got a sister. How old? I was in my 30s then, I think, yeah. And I wasn't married and I hadn't had any children. Yeah, so he said, ask us to come in and see me. Dr. Johnson, he was only just starting off. So the way he put it to me was, we'll run all the tests on you. And he said to me, don't worry about it, because it's not likely to happen. Most people fail the test. They're not a match, blah, blah, blah. So I was going for tests, and then eventually I went in one day and he said, we were a perfect match. We'd got the same genes from the same parent. And he said, I've penciled it in. And I said, pencil what? And, really, it was good the way they did it for me. I mean, things have probably changed now. So we had the operation, and, we are one of the lucky ones, because my brother, it's still going fine after 24 and a half years. But I never had to sort of sit there and say yes or no. It was a gradual thing. And then I saw my brother deteriorating. So you can't say no, can you?
Well, some would, and frankly, I'd have to think long and hard. I'd look Stephen Maureen, but I'd have to think long and hard. Bert in Macclesfield says this: Alan, following on from yesterday's discussions on the subject of organ transplant and police car chases, consider the following scenario, says Bert. The law is changed to make organ recovery from the dead obligatory. The car driven by a criminal is being chased by the police and crashes, killing an innocent pedestrian and seriously injuring the criminal driver. Both are taken to hospital, and it's found that the driver has damaged some internal organs that he cannot live without and will die unless he receives a transplant. Whereas those same organs in the dead pedestrian are undamaged. The surgeons, probably unknowing of the circumstances, then take the organs of the innocent pedestrian and give them to the man who killed him, thus saving his life. What a nightmare, says Bert. Methinks a tad more thought should be given to the organ transplant suggestion. It is an interesting scenario, isn't it? Where's the justice of that? Well, you know me, a bit of a lily-livered sort. I don't see a problem with it. I do see a problem with the road traffic accident, but the bloke, the pedestrian, innocent pedestrian, is no more nor less dead because of the process of death. And if the driver is injured, then his need of life is no more or less than if he was not the driver. So I don't see a problem with it. I just don't. I would say It's a very, very rare, but a possible. I'm not in any way saying that no, it couldn't happen. But I think that would be perfectly fine by me. I think the modern phrase, Bert, is I wouldn't have a problem with it. I wouldn't, even if I was the relative of the living, the dead, the innocent party. Even if I was a relative of that person, I would still say, well, I'd rather the driver, the criminally dangerous driver, I'd rather he lived. So, yeah, you can have the organs. Ghastly though that scenario is, it's a possibility. Bert, thank you for thinking of it. I kind of wish I'd thought of it, but it wouldn't change my view. 0161 228 2255. If you've something to say, that's good. I'm going to play you, not now, but a bit later, I'm going to play you another call from the back end of yesterday, just in case you turned off a bit soon, because I think it's quite an important way of looking at the organ transplant scenario. But do feel free to have your say on that matter, or indeed any other matter right now. Al in Middleton. Hiya, Al.
Good afternoon, Alan.
What have you got for us?
It's gas and electric charges again.
Go on.
It's probably been aired before. I don't know if you've aired this subject, but...
Don't worry.
I'm just looking in the mirror this morning, reading the mirror, and they're saying they're going to drop the prices after the new year. I don't know if you've seen it or not.
I have, yeah.
Yeah, but it also says that, the prepayment meter customers, like myself, have been overcharged. I'm just wondering if we can claim any of the money back that we've been overcharged. Because I've been having these cards for 20 years or more, you know what I mean?
Well, I think the simple answer to your question, can you reclaim it? No.
Can I get a refund?
You won't get a refund unless the government puts pressure on the power organisations, the energy organisations, to see that you do. No. Under the current regulations, people who pay on prepayment meters, as you know and as you've been reading, pay more than those who are reasonably well prepared for the bills and the like. I mean, my bills are paid monthly by direct debit, and my electricity will only... I'm afraid I'm on tank gas, which is extremely expensive, but on the basis of electricity, I probably pay less per kilowatt hour than you do. Which is ludicrous, because why should we pay different prices?
Well, the thing is, and our money's up front, isn't it? Yours isn't. Yours is monthly, mine's weekly, if you like.
I'm not sure whether mine's monthly, but in the summer I'm paying up front, and in the winter I'm probably paying a bit behind. So over the year it might balance out, I don't know. But you're absolutely right. For you, every time, you've got to buy it in advance.
Yeah.
For you, it's like petrol, isn't it? Where you go and buy petrol. It's like going to the supermarket, where you buy the goods at the supermarket, you pay for them before you get to use them. But the people on monthly payments, and indeed quarterly bills, they use it and then pay for it.
And it says they're making £550 million that way, out of the prepayment.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's something not right, obviously.
Well,
I'm not legally...
No.
I don't know anything about legal-wise.
But you end up in this terrible bind if you start to analyse it. And I'm not defending the power companies by any means, but you end up in this bind where you say, well, hang on a minute, you're paying by prepayment meter. That involves a lot more cost to the company than my method of payment. Direct debit is very cheap to the company. They get the money regularly. They get it just for a bank transaction that is almost costless, whereas you are having to deal with the process by which you pay, and it's an expensive process by comparison. So if they gave you your electricity at the same price that they give it to me, then I, and lots like me, would be subsidising you and lots like you, because we're paying a greater price than... We're paying a contribution towards your costs.
I can't see how that is, though. I mean, surely it can't be that much to set up a prepayment card. Maybe...
Yeah, it is.
It might cost £100 to get it going, but after that, you know what I mean? You're away, aren't you?
But where do you make your prepayment?
Where? At the shop, yeah.
Right,
I've heard you say that before.
No, he's not doing it for now.
No.
He gets a cut. Yeah. Now, I don't know what the cut is, but let's say it's 1%. 500 million quid of 1%. 1% of 500 million quid is quite a lot of money, and that that quite a lot of money would have to be paid by somebody, and the somebody paying it would be people who use a cheaper method. Now, I'm not saying that's what should happen. I'm just saying that would be the consequence.
Yeah.
And but then we live in an allegedly social society, so those who can ought to pay a little bit more for those who perhaps cannot.
Yeah, but the ones that can't afford it are having to pay through the nose for it.
Well, that's the problem. They don't get a choice. But the difficulty is if they said, well, OK, we're going to do the prepayment meter and we're going to do it at the same price as everybody else pays, then people might say, well, I want one. Yeah. And we're then into the cost of electricity going up and all the rest of it. It's a very complicated equation, but I think I agree with you that it should be the same for us all.
So we won't get a refund then?
That's for sure. You won't. I mean, you know, I'm not a man to predict the future, but if you're banking on a refund, I should not hold your breath.
Could we write to somebody?
Oh, God, yes, you can write to anybody. Write to me if you want, but it's completely pointless. Write to the Prime Minister, write to the chairman of the organisations, write to who the hell you like. But frankly, I don't think anyone is going to change the law, and if they do, I don't think they'll change it retrospectively.
Right.
But write to them, tell them what you think, and if thousands of others write, you never know, pigs might fly.
It says in the Mirror here the companies have also promised to lapse on unfair charges for prepayment meter customers, so they're admitting
well,
that...
no, you see, it depends who's put the word unfair in, doesn't it?
Well,
what page are you looking at? I've got the Mirror in front of me.
Page 4.
There it is, yeah.
Yeah. Third paragraph down.
Page 4 of the Daily Mirror.
Third paragraph.
Have we got a different Daily Mirror?
Tuesday, isn't it?
Today is Tuesday, yeah. I've got a different Daily Mirror than you.
You can't have.
What can I for one? Don't you start with me.
I bought mine in Miggy.
In Miggy? Well, yeah. I didn't buy mine. It was delivered by somebody to the BBC. I have it here. New laws to protect youngsters. Farmer, my two lovers. Virgin, row divorce off. Mum's top for driving. 294 days of pain. In reference to Baby P, of course. And council, we stuck to the procedures. But I have seen the article in other newspapers where the power companies have said that they're going to look at, should we say, lowering the price. But the word unfair, just to be picky, the word unfair will have been put in by the Mirror. That's not to criticise them, but...
Well, it's got a picture of Milliband's ugly kisser in the paper here.
Yeah, well, you'd want a discount for that, wouldn't you?
And now whether he's behind it or not, the new Energy Secretary summoned the companies to special meetings to explain why they had pushed up the prices despite making billions of pounds profit.
Well, not only that, of course, the other thing that's going on that is absolutely scandalous, without getting into the idiosyncrasies of how one pays one's bill, at the moment, it is absolutely outrageous. The price of oil has halved.
I know.
And everything is based on the price of oil, but have our bills reduced?
Or the price of diesel or petrol.
Exactly.
Has come down, but nothing compared to...
Nothing compared. The other thing, of course, is that when the price of oil halves, it doesn't halve the price of petrol, because the biggest chunk of petrol goes to the government anyway. Al, good to talk to you. As I say, write to the Prime Minister, write to the Energy Minister, write to the chairman of each of the power companies, but don't hold your breath waiting for the discount.
No, but if a million of us wrote, we'd get something done, probably.
Well, the post office would be grateful. Have a good day, Al.
Thanks
Cheers,
a lot.
mate. 0161 228 2255. As I said earlier, I'm going to play you... we don't do repeats with the BBC. Dear God, we have a reputation, as you know, for not doing repeats. But I just thought you'd enjoy this. Enjoy is the wrong word, but we were talking about organ donation and the importance of it generally. Now, whether we should change the system or not is a matter of debate. But generally, people say, well... You know, organ donation, yes, that's a good thing in our society. And then we got a call from Peter in Wigan, calling about his own daughter.
We have a 27-year-old daughter who has cystic fibrosis and who is currently waiting for a double lung transplant. She's been on the waiting list now about 16 months, and she's considerably getting, her condition is getting worse and worse as each day goes by. As far as my own personal point of view is that I believe that the opt-out should be it should be that each person should have their organs donated unless they want to opt out. Also, it's very, very difficult. We now, we're leading up to Christmas. We are basically willing someone to die. It's not a very nice thing to face up to, but we are willing someone to, unfortunately, to die to give my daughter a chance of life.
What a horrible position to find yourself in, isn't it? That the only prospect of your daughter having a decent life henceforth is if somebody else's child dies early. Because they don't take the old codgers stuff if somebody else dies early. David says, regarding objections to organ donation on religious grounds, I seem to remember the story that God took a rib from Adam, no opt-out clause there, and used this to build Eve. Surely if it's good enough for God, it should be good enough for his or her followers. Good point. Just gone 20 to 1 on BBC Radio Manchester. News headlines, Mark Edwards.
The cost of living's fallen for the first time in more than a year, following a sharp fall in petrol and food prices. There's a possibility Britain's biggest sculpture, Manchester's Bee of the Bang, could face demolition. The City Council's considering a number of options for the sculpture that's been beset with problems. And a coroner's recorded a verdict of accidental death on a 2-year-old girl from Denton who was killed when a car reversed over her in June. Manchester's weather, sunny spells, dry and a top temperature of 10 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester 2020 traffic.
In Horwich, Lee Lane, there's been an accident which involved a pedestrian. So at the junction of Winterhay Lane, the road is closed for accident investigation work. It's going to be like that until at least 3 p.m. later on. In Manchester, Pollard Street between Malta Street and Great Ancoat Street remains closed because of the roadworks which are nearby on Great Ancoat Street. The M6 moving well despite the fact that we've got these narrow lanes between 27, that's Standish, and junction 28 at Leyland. We've got roadworks there and so narrow lanes are in place. As I say, traffic looking good on the speed sensors, it's all moving. Anything else, you can call me. It's 016 244 4951. I'm Orla Merchant.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports with Will Perry.
Good afternoon to you. The FA has played down talk of a rift between manager Fabio Capello and Premier League clubs over the release of players for tomorrow's friendly against Germany. 8 first-choice players will be missing because of injury. Nemanja Vidic is convinced that Manchester United will show their true title credentials in the second half of the season. Despite recording their biggest win of the campaign against Stoke on Saturday, the Reds remain 8 points adrift of Chelsea and Liverpool, but Vidic is staying calm.
It's always, I think, it's about the second half of the season. It's a more deciding game when you come more pressure, when is the 1 point is going to decide the winners. But we need to take every point we can and in the end of the season to be close to the first place.
Well, Sir Bobby Charlton is pleased Cristiano Ronaldo has rediscovered his dead ball technique and believes the United winger is ready to rack up the goals again this season. Ronaldo took his tally to 101 for the club, with 2 in last weekend's win over Stoke. And Charlton says his rate of scoring is fantastic. He had a great season last time around and is heading for another one. Alan Shearer is ready to become the new manager of Newcastle. That's according to his good friend and former teammate Rob Lee. Lee, who played for the Magpies alongside Shearer, is quoted in a fanzine saying he'd do the job tomorrow if the job is how he wants it. The FA Cup takes centre stage this evening. Droylsden battle it out with League 2 table toppers Darlington in the first round replay. Bloods goalkeeper Craig Mawson is doubtful with knee ligament damage. Half of Droylsden's team will be on their lunch break as we speak because, as manager Dave Pace explains, there are a variety of professions within his squad.
Well, it's everything from building work. We've got everyone plasterers. We've got a lot of coaches do football coaching, but I mean we've got a lot of building workers to clerical workers to coaches. So it's a mixture of everything really.
Well, Altrincham face League Two's bottom side Luton. Sean Denmore will have a late fitness test on his calf injury today, but Graham Heathcote's side do have Chris Lane back after suspension. The boss is warning his players not to feel that drawing away means tonight's replay will be a formality.
We've got a tough task. They're a full-time outfit. They've got some good players. They've had a lot of injury problems themselves, so I'm not disguising that fact. But a few of them have come back now. They had a good win on Saturday. They've got a far better away record than they have at home, so that tells me that we're in for a difficult night. So we've got to be guarded as well as making sure that we've got enough attacking options to actually, go to win the game.
Rochdale, they play Barnet at Spotland for their replay. Dale boss Keith Hill is expecting just one thing.
I expect us to win it. That's not being arrogance in any shape, way or form. We've got an expectancy of these players. They've got to live with that expectancy. They're a good group. They work hard. We're creative. We win football matches, and we're competing.
Also tonight, it's Stockport against Yeovil at Edgeley Park, and Oldham played Cheltenham at Boundary Park. We'll have coverage of all those ties in the all-new Manchester Sports with Ian Cheeseman, who's live at Droylsden from 7 o'clock. In rugby union, Sale's Andrew Sheridan will start for England against South Africa at Twickenham on Saturday. The Sharks prop was doubtful with a neck injury. England coach Martin Johnson makes just one change from the side that lost to Australia last weekend. Wasps flanker James Haskell replaces Leicester's Tom Croft. Meanwhile, injuries have forced South Africa to delay naming their team for the match. The Springboks will assess their players and announce their side tomorrow. Ricky Hatton says that a good performance on Saturday against Paulie Malignaggi could see him being touted for a rematch with Floyd Mayweather next year. And the first test between England and India, scheduled for the 11th of December in Ahmedabad, could be put back by 24 hours to allow India captain MS Dhoni to play in the 2020 Champions League final. That may mean the second test won't start until the December the 20th. With England's players then facing a race to get back home in time for Christmas.
The next live action on the Northwest's biggest sports station.
So 2 of our non-league teams and 3 league sides are in FA Cup action tonight. Ian Cheeseman presents the all-new Manchester Sports live from Droylsden from 7.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Droylsden, eh? Big time. 0161 228 2255. No disrespect to Droylsden, it's a fine place, but their football team rarely makes it onto the airwaves, so good luck to them, say I. Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk. The text number is 07786 206 951. Come on, Droylsden. Do they have a song? Perhaps they don't have them on the terraces, as they're called, anymore. Do football clubs have a song these days? Do Droylsden have a song? Play Up You Blues, or whatever? I've no idea. And I may kill myself for having that thought. John in Lee. Hello, John.
Hello, Alan.
What have you got?
I'm listening to your last call,
Yeah.
about these having to pay special tariffs or something on the gas meters.
Prepayment meters are more expensive than quarterly meters, or even... go on.
Well, I have a theory, as they do it, and they don't want to change the meters because if you didn't pay your bill, or I didn't pay mine, or these quarterly, these direct debits, they couldn't just come and switch you off. They have to send you different letters, take you to court. You could have a protest that way, couldn't you?
You could.
You know what I mean? But these people, what pay prepayment meters, can't. As soon as the £5 runs off on the card, their gas goes off.
Correct.
And there's no way they can put it back on unless they put another £5 on the card.
Yep.
So I think they're held to ransom. They have to put the money in.
Well, they do have to put the money in. What the prepayment meter is meant to enable a person to do. This is the argument, and I don't think it knocks down what you've said, John, but the argument is that it enables the family to feel the immediate consequence of using more energy than they should. So they quickly learn that if they leave all the lights on and they put the gas fire on in the room and they don't turn it off when they leave that room and cease using that room, then they can see the fact that they're paying money to heat a part of the house that they're not at that moment using, and they very quickly learn that that's not a clever way to do it. Whereas those who pay quarterly, they get a high bill and they go, oh my God, then they pay the bill and they move on and they never learn.
Yeah, I understand that, Alan, because I have been this time been switching the light off. If I'm not in the kitchen, I switch the light off. Do you know what I mean? Upstairs,
I do, yeah.
I do. Upstairs in the bathroom, switch the light off.
Yeah.
And I have my grandchildren come at weekends, and I've drummed it into them now, if you're not in that room, switch the light off. And I hope they do it at home. But I had a friend come the other day, he just turned 65, he just got his old age pension. And he was complete, his flat is all electric, And he gets his electric off a big supplier.
Off a company, yeah.
A British company it is, I'm not saying
okay, okay, go on.
And I said to him, well, phone, I've got a number here where I got in a letter, these social tariffs for people on low income and all this,
Indeed.
So he phoned them up. He phoned them up from my house, and, oh, I'm sorry, we don't do that now. And I thought, can they just do it for as long as they want and then stop it?
Well, yes, they can. You see, the energy supply companies are just like, we're not criticising any of them, but they're just like Sainsbury's or, I don't know, or John Lewis's. They're just a shop. And they don't... If you go into Sainsbury's or Tesco's or any of the others, Summerfield or whatever, and you go in there and say, look, I'm having a short week, can I have a free loaf? No. Get out of the shop. Well, OK, I'm a bit poor, can I have a cheaper loaf? No, there's a loaf. You want a loaf, that's what they cost. If you haven't got the money, you don't have the loaf. Well, that's the way shops work. That's also the way businesses work, and the energy supply companies are now businesses.
Well, that's fair enough, that, Alan, but the government's been getting the gate of them, haven't they? Come on, get these bills down, get them down, and they say, well, we'll do everything we can to help. So I remember them fetching it out, that social tariffs, is it called, something like that?
It was, yeah, they brought out
and
social
tariffs. I had an advertise on my bill, my last bill, saying, if you want this, ring this such a number if you qualify. And they must have only had it going for a couple of weeks, and then they stopped it.
Well, I'm not aware. But certainly, are you prepared to pay more for your electricity so that somebody down the street can get it for free?
Well, I don't know who can get it free.
Well, are you prepared to pay more so that somebody down the road can get it cheaper?
Well, I mean, we have to do, haven't we? Well, it's a social community, isn't it?
Well, we don't have to. If you got to Sainsbury's or Tesco's or what have you, and when you got to the door, they said, are you on the dole? Yeah, OK, you go down there, your food's that price. What about you? Retirement pension. OK, you go down there, it's slightly more, but what about you? Well, I'm working, I've got a good job. Right, well, you pay the high bills. Do you think people would accept that?
Well, they do it with taxes, don't they?
They do it with what?
They do it with taxes.
Do you mean...
Income taxes. If you earn more, you pay more.
Well, yes, you do. But we're not talking about the taxation system. That's the government. We're talking about businesses. You mentioned taxis. Try ringing your local taxi firm and say, can I have a taxi to the airport? You're in Lee. They'll say that's about 22 quid. And then say, well, actually, I'm a retirement pensioner. And they'll say, well, in that case, it's only 18. No, they won't. They'll say it's 22.
It says special rates, Alan, for all those pensions.
Does it really? Well, there you are. What do I know? But that's the point. I mean, they have a rule now. I don't know how enforced it is, but they have a rule now where the electricity and the gas supply companies are not allowed to disconnect a home if it has young children in it or elderly people.
Well, that's my... You've just made my point for me. They can't disconnect our homes.
That's right.
But they don't need to disconnect these third people.
Exactly.
It goes off automatic.
Exactly. They have actually brought in a process whereby people disconnect themselves.
Yeah.
Because they're no longer allowed to do it.
And it's not the well-off, is it?
No, it's not the well-off. It's not the well-off. It's always the poor.
Yeah.
But if you privatise things, you put them in the hands of people who have a legal obligation to their shareholders above all else.
Yeah, and it's not the poor where it's all, is it?
It's not likely to be, John.
No.
Good on you, mate.
All right,
always a pleasure. John in Wigan, how are you?
Morning, Alan.
Good morning.
Afternoon.
Either of those.
It's a subject I'm not that particularly... I'm just going to broach about the congestion charge.
Oh, yes.
I live in the border of Merseyside, outskirts of Wigan. It's absolutely loaded to the fact that why would I not vote for it? I never go into Manchester. It's promised improved transport via train and bus. It's irrelevant to me, the congestion charge, virtually irrelevant. I might go to there once a year to Manchester to go on holiday if I'm lucky enough. Why on earth would I not vote for it? So it's an absolutely question that... It's a question that doesn't need answering, isn't it, to the vast majority of people who don't go into Manchester to work, like me, who also... I'm 61 now, so buses are free. So why would when I get this question, when I obviously get this piece of paper asking me to vote, I presume, I don't know how I'll vote, how am I going to vote?
It's going to be I don't know how you're going to vote. I don't know whether you're going to, but it's a postal ballot.
But why on earth would the vast majority of people, especially the over 60s, vote against it? Unless you've got a son who goes into Manchester via work, or the vast majority, it's an absolutely question that's... It couldn't be more irrelevant to me whether they have a congestion charge or not.
Indeed.
I'm going to vote for it because the bus service is going to improve. But it's not a question that should be asked to a bloke like me.
Well, who should they ask?
I'm not affected by it.
Who should they ask?
The people who are affected by it.
Well, everybody's affected by it. What you mean by that response, I suspect, is the people who would have to pay it.
Yeah, well,
but whatever happened to the...
I'm not affected by it. The only thing
you would be affected
if I get a better bus service.
Exactly, so you would be affected by it. So there is an effect.
No, I'm not affected. I'm not affected by the congestion.
You're not affected.
I'm affected by not having a congestion charge.
Well, the question that
I'm not affected by having one.
The question you are affected. The word effect doesn't only mean bad things. That's a negative effect. You can have a positive effect. I promise you, if you won £50 million on the lottery, it'd affect you, but you wouldn't go bankrupt. It would affect you.
I can't agree with that statement, the fact that I'm affected by whether they have a congestion charge. Well, yeah, all right, then I'll concede some of the point.
Right.
I'll be conceding. It's an unfair question about the congestion charge to a bloke like me.
But it's not...
I voted for something.
But it's not...
It's a one-way question.
John,
for me.
it's not a congestion charge referendum. It's what's known as the TIF proposals referendum, and part of the TIF proposals is that there will be a congestion charge levied in order to provide half of the fiscal benefits for the overall TIF proposal. So what you're being asked to vote for is whether you give Greater Manchester the opportunity, the right, to apply to the government for a these are rough figures, £1.5 billion grant, and then permission to Greater Manchester to apply for a £1.5 billion loan that will be repaid by the collection of a congestion charge. So there is effect to all of us in that it is allegedly designed to make the roads more free of cars, to create less congestion, if you like, by improving public transport. Now, Wigan, I remember a Wigan councillor saying to me, not the leader, but just an ordinary councillor in Wigan saying to me, it's we are only beneficiaries because people...
Totally agree with him.
Because people... Well, first of all...
Wigan, by the way, Alan.
Well, you must say it how you must, and I'll say it how I will.
Right.
But the councillor, who was female, incidentally, said it's a win-win.
Once she's a sensible councillor.
But
what she said
there's bound to be one someday, John.
What she said to you is virtually exactly that I'm saying to you.
Indeed.
But it's a one-way question. It's a no-lose question.
But John, the referendum is for the whole of Greater Manchester.
It's an unfair referendum.
Well, what would you...
I won't be affected whether...
Yes, you will.
Yeah, I will be affected, you're right. I won't be affected financially by the fact that if they vote for a congestion charge, I will almost certainly, in the lifetime I'm in now left, there may be 100 to 1 chance that I might have to pay...
We haven't a lot of time.
Wait a minute. I might have to pay... I can't see one reason why I'll pay.
Right, so you believe you will never pay the congestion charge. I understand.
I have a better bus service.
John, here's the question. Should the congestion charge referendum, as you call it, the TIF proposals referendum as the system, it is, should that only be addressed to those who are likely to pay, or should it be the whole of Greater Manchester?
It should only be addressed. It shouldn't be addressed to blokes. I shouldn't.
Okay,
I'm going to vote.
John,
I'm going to vote you through
John,
in the paper this morning.
We got to go, John.
Yeah,
we got to go. John says because he'll never have to pay the congestion charge in what he calls his remaining lifetime, they shouldn't bother him with asking him to vote. What do you say?
Join me, Becky Want, today from 2, asking should men wear pink, which books make you cry, and what's new at the Manchester Christmas markets.
What an interesting concept. It won't affect me, so I don't want to vote on it. I'm never going to go to war, so if you want a war, you're going to have a war. I'm 60 years of age, you ain't sending me, so you go ahead and have a war. I don't care if the young men die.
95.1 FM,
DAB Digital Radio,
and the World Wide Web.
This is Manchester.
BBC Radio Manchester.
At 1 o'clock, will Manchester's Bee of the Bank go out with a whimper? And Cameron's abandoned his policy of following Brown's spending plans.
Vidic convinced United will soon show their title credentials.
Well, this afternoon looks pretty cheerful. It's dry with some sunny spells. It'll become cloudier later, but top temperatures will get to 10 Celsius.
And in Horwich, Lee Lane is going to be closed until 3 p.m. at the junction of Winter Hay Lane following accident investigation work.
Good afternoon, I'm Mark Edwardson. There's a possibility Manchester's Bee of the Bank could face demolition. The City Council says it's one option that's being considered since it accepted £1.7 million in an out-of-court settlement with the construction and design team behind the sculpture. It's been beset with problems since being unveiled in 2005. Eddie Smith from New East Manchester Limited says the council will already be considering what to do next.
We will be looking at what our options are going forward, and we would like to make the structure safe. So we're now going to work with our technical advisors to look at those options, and we will be coming back to the City Council in the new year with proposals for the future of the sculpture. I don't want to anticipate the outcome of that work.
David Cameron says the Conservatives are abandoning their commitment to meet Labour's spending plans for the year 2010 to 2011. Delivering a speech in London earlier today, he attacked the government's plans to increase the amount of money it's borrowing, saying such a move would result in a tax bombshell in the future. Our political correspondent Norman Smith reports.
The decision to abandon Labour's spending plans from 2010 marks a significant shift in Tory policy and signals the opening up of a major divide between the two parties over the economy. The commitment had been a key part of Mr Cameron's attempts to reposition the Tory party and deflect Labour accusations that the Conservatives would cut public services. Today, however, Mr Cameron warned because of the downturn and the ballooning deficit, the government's spending plans were no longer sustainable and were based on heroic assumptions about economic recovery.
Inflation fell last month for the first time in more than a year. The Consumer Prices Index, the government's preferred measure, stood at 4.5% in October. That's down from 5.2% in September. The main causes are falling petrol and food prices. Two more companies have announced job cuts. The firm which owns Plum Centre and Build Centres to close 200 branches in the UK and Ireland, with the loss of around 2,000 jobs. And National Express is to cut more than 300 jobs at its East Anglia rail franchise. The BBC's come under fire from MPs following last month's controversial broadcast on the Russell Brand Show on BBC Radio 2. The Director-General, Mark Thompson, has admitted that he didn't know about the problem until a week after transmission, but denied he was slow to act. Mr Thompson admitted errors of judgment at Radio 2 and said the messages left for actor Andrew Sachs shouldn't have been broadcast.
This is an example of a really serious editorial lapse, which is not close to some boundary where you can debate it. It is absolutely the wrong side of the line in terms of invasion of privacy and in terms of a lapse of effectively of duty of care to some of the individuals, Andrew Sachs and his granddaughter being the central figures there.
An 80-year-old woman's in hospital with serious head injuries after being hit by a car in Bolton. It happened on Lee Lane in Horwich this morning. The road's still closed while police investigate. And it's a real numbers game for this year's Christmas markets in Manchester. Celebrating the 10th anniversary of the markets, there'll be 6 different sites across the city with more than 200 stalls. BBC Radio Manchester's Becky Want and John Thompson officially opened the markets an hour ago. Now, maybe you're amongst the thousands of Mancunians jetting off to the sun this Christmas. If you're planning to take presents or crackers with you, you might want to check they don't fall foul of heightened security before you travel. Russell Craig's from the airport.
Crackers in the suitcase are fine, and so are party poppers. But even though the Civil Aviation Authority do, as a rule, allow Christmas crackers in the cabin of an aircraft, certain airlines have restrictions. So our advice is check before you fly, and if you're not sure you don't have time, put it in your suitcase.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports with Joanne Smith.
Nemanja Vidic is convinced that Manchester United will show their true title credentials in the second half of the season. Despite recording their biggest win of the campaign against Stoke on Saturday, the Reds remain 8 points adrift of Chelsea and Liverpool. Our non-league sides are dreaming of an FA Cup upset tonight against League Two's top and bottom clubs. Altrincham take on Luton in the first round replay at Moss Lane, while Droylsden face Darlington at the Butcher's Arms. Also tonight it's Stockport against Yeovil at Edgeley Park, Oldham host Cheltenham, while Keith Hill's Rochdale play Barnet at Scotland. We'll have all the coverage of those ties in the all-new Manchester Sports with Ian Cheeseman, who's live at Droylsden from 7 o'clock tonight. And Sale's Andrew Sheridan will start for England against South Africa at Twickenham on Saturday. The Sharks prop was doubtful with a neck injury.
BBC Radio Manchester satellite weather with Heather Stott.
Well, this afternoon it's fine and it's bright. We've got some lovely spells of sunshine, although it will become more cloudy later. We've got light to moderate northwesterly winds, and they might feel quite strong at times across the Pennines. Temperatures, though, close to normal for this time of year, 10 Celsius.
Allan Beswick, halfway through your workday.
BBC Radio Manchester.
A very good day to you. How are you? That was an interesting thought from John, wasn't it? That he'd never have to pay the congestion charge, so why are they bothering him, asking him to vote in whether we should have a congestion charge as he sees it? But it's the TIF proposals. Just for the record, 12 till 2 on Friday. I'll be at Clouds, what is it, 23, is it? How many floors up is it? Who cares? I'll be at Clouds, the nightclub, halfway up the Beetham Tower. And there ensconced will be a number of interested parties who are very much and very vociferous about the yay or nay of the congestion charge stroke TIF proposals. If I just said TIF proposals, a lot of people will say, what does he mean? So I have to keep saying the congestion charge. But it isn't about the congestion charge. It's bigger than that. It's about the whole package, which I concede includes the possibility of a congestion charge. But there you are. And we're all in Greater Manchester. All those registered to vote in Greater Manchester will have the opportunity of a postal vote in a referendum for yay or nay. That will be it. Do you support the... Do you agree with the TIF proposals, yes or no? There's a supporting leaflet that John was referring to. Anyway, 12 till 2 on Friday. And whereas in a debate you're normally wanting to hear from each side their arguments, and we will have some of that, my ambition is to try and get some of the details about the TIF proposals into the open so that we all know what it is we're voting for. And for once in my life, and I promise you it is only once, for once in my life, I don't actually have a point of view. I'm not that bothered about the environment, and although I'll almost certainly be one of the people that pays the congestion charge, I will, as a self-employed person, find some way of passing it on to somebody else. So the issue is either for you to decide whether you think you should pay or get the benefits, or whether you think businesses and all the rest. So it's a bigger question than just a straightforward, well, I won't be paying it, so I'll vote for it, who cares? 01612282255. You want to talk about that, you can do so today. You can do so on Friday. You can do it whenever you like, really, because you know me, I let you talk about anything. I have no shame, and even fewer principles. Margaret in Wigan. Hiya, Margaret.
Hi, Alan. My reasons aren't the same as John's about not voting because it doesn't affect me, although it doesn't affect either myself or my husband. But I think this will be an untrue reading rather than a false vote, because if you get people, like in our position, voting for it, that obviously could sway us, whereas, you know, in favour of the council implementing it. And I think this should be made clearer for people. It does say on the leaflet, which we got yesterday, disabled and over a certain age, etc., etc. But I don't think they should be included in the vote, because I don't think it's going to be a true reading. And I think it will affect, if it gets through, it will affect an awful lot of people, really.
But we don't, in any referendum, well, we've only had one national referendum, but you always give votes to everybody. We're a democracy, and this is a democratic process of making the decision. Now, you, for yourself, Margaret, can decide, well, frankly, you can say, I don't think it's fair for me to vote, so I won't vote. But to say that people like you shouldn't be invited to vote is perhaps undemocratic, isn't it?
Well, a lot of people will object to that. Oh, I've not been given a vote. But our views are that, you know, this will not give a true answer to the voter. And you...
Well, it won't be untrue, will it? Because if you decide... When we all get our ballot paper, we will all decide for ourselves whether we can be bothered voting. Now, some people will not vote because they're just too lazy. Some people won't vote because, like you, they think it would be unfair to vote for something that you perceive as not affecting you. And therefore you say, well, all those who are going to benefit or lose from it, let them vote. And there's no dishonour in that, Margaret. That's a perfectly valid position. But there are other people who say, well, all right, but it will affect my community. And I'm a member of this community of Greater Manchester and beyond. So I want to vote. I want to vote for something that will affect my community. And that's equally valid. I'm not attempting to convince you to vote, Margaret. I'm just saying that it would be unjust for somebody in the 10 town halls to sit there and say, oh, it won't affect them, don't send them a paper. It won't affect them, don't send them a paper. We've all got to have the right to vote. Whether we choose to the option of voting, that's up to us, isn't it?
Well, probably you're right, but I still hold out for you. Just one more point. When the councillor from Bolton resigned, is her name Ruth? I can't remember her other name. She was Minister of Education.
Oh, I'm sorry, she wasn't a councillor. Ruth Kelly.
Well, she was an MP, yeah.
Yeah, she was. She was the Minister for local authorities, basically.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, she made a statement, as I recall, saying... and there is no guarantee that this money will come from the government.
Well,
and that stuck in my mind.
You're absolutely correct. In fact, it was an interview we did with her. I did with her at the Labour Party conference. And the question was, well, is it a vote for we will get this £3 billion and the congestion charge if we vote yes? Or is it a vote if we don't vote yes, we won't get it? Now, the answer came back. It isn't that you will get the money, but there's no other council bidding for it at the moment because no other council at the moment has been prepared, or no other region has been prepared to consider a congestion charge as part of the package. So Manchester will be invited to apply. Now or Greater Manchester. Now what she didn't say was, and that means you'll definitely get it. But what she did say was you're not in competition with anybody else. So in order to qualify for the £1.5 million up front and the £1.5 million loan, or the right to take out that loan, in order to qualify for that, there are certain obvious accountancy, academic and principal arguments that have got to be overcome. But you're not fighting against somebody else.
No. I'd be very interested in one way that if ever I see the day that Goulburn Railway Station is opened, which has been talked of ever since we've lived here in 40-odd years, I'll sort of give a cheer then, because I've got to use it.
Have you got your leaflet yet?
Yes, it came yesterday. There's a little map.
And what did it say?
Well, it mentioned one of the proposals are tidying up, I think Brim was one, and etc., but the possibility of opening Goulburn
So there you are.
Railway Station.
Now, I don't want to talk you into voting, but if you want to affect that decision, you need to vote. Now, I'm not going to say what way you should vote, or even that you should vote, but if you want to affect the development or otherwise of Goulburn Station, you need to consider whether you should vote. Now, you make your own mind up which way you go, and I don't know. You may say, well, they ain't going to do that, whatever they've promised. You may say it's not in there as a guarantee. You may say, I don't believe a word of it and it doesn't affect me anyway. You can say all of those things, but if everybody says that, then I don't know where we end up.
You can be quite persuasive.
I'm not persuading you. I'm only persuading you to consider it. I don't. In the end, I think your right not to vote is as strong as your right to vote. That's what we call freedom. Absolutely.
I know. I would wave a flag if ever Goulburn Station opened and I could walk there and get on a train. I'd wave a flag.
All right. Well. You know how to affect that if you wish. Good on you, love.
All right.
Have a good day. 0161228 2285. If you wish to join us, you can. And we've ended up talking about the congestion charge. It isn't compulsory. You can talk about anything else at all. I surely don't mind.
Mornings sound better with Eamon O'Neill and Diane Oxbury.
Eamon and Diane.
I'm a celeb, get them out in here. Nicola somebody or other. She's had some enhancements, I think, some parts of her body.
Has she had an extension?
I think she has, actually.
Did she have planning permission?
You don't need it any longer. Luckily, there's some skylights in them, which makes it changes the rules.
Has she got some Velux windows?
Eamon and Diane and you.
What do you want to say?
It is a tragedy that 3 people have died, but the police have got to be allowed to do the job. And if they're not allowed to do the job, well, you might as well not have a police force. It's all right saying this, that and the other. What do? Hit him with a feather duster.
The station with Eamon and Diane for breakfast.
Hands up, listen to me, that's what it is.
Back tomorrow morning from 6 at BBC Radio Manchester.
A very good day to you. How are you? It's exactly 1:15. I totally understand, says Steve in Chorlton. I totally understand the points of view of those who are either waiting for a transplant or have friends, relatives who are. However, I don't agree with the proposal to change the opt-in to opt-out. He's talking, of course, about organ donation. However, the assumption is that a reason why there aren't sufficient donors available for transplant is because people fail to opt in, even though they'd like to be donors. Is it not possible that they actually don't opt in because they don't want to be? If someone dies and has no donor card, says Stephen, the doctors can ask the next of kin if they would consider donating the organs from the deceased. I'd be interested to see any statistics which demonstrate the number of donations done in this way and whether it's possible that this situation actually increases the probability of organs being donated or not. If people have to opt out, and do, then this avenue of organ donation will be removed completely. If this proposal goes ahead, one thing will be sure: there'll be only 3 things certain in life: death, being chopped up for organ donation, and taxes. Thank you very much, Steve in Charlton. Thank you. But yes, I think the current situation is that if a person dies in hospital in such a way that their organs are untainted and therefore would be available for donation, I think many doctors have that conversation whether a person is a donor or not a donor. I think they do. And many people have expressed their wishes both by signing the register, but have also expressed their wishes to their loved ones, as we call them. My wife knows that I'm on the register, and when I've died, anyone who needs it or even wants it can have what bits they want, because frankly, my chances of me needing them are slim. So my wife knows that. But if I was the converse, if I was, no, I don't want to be a donor, then there's no place I can register that presently, other than to tell my relatives. And I would then say, well, look, when I'm dead, I don't want any bits of me going anywhere. I want to be buried or whatever, for what, believe me. I don't have that view, but if we have a donor system, then at the age of maturity, we presume that everybody will have to make a judgment, will have to decide whether they want their organs to be donated or not. And if they don't, then frankly, they fill in the forms and the job is stopped. But otherwise the organs are available and a life gets saved, goes the argument. When you start looking at the statistics, I don't think it changes them much immediately. Whether we change the emphasis or not, I don't think it changes anything much yet. But of course, times will go on. Tony's talking about the pirates. Pirates are in the news these days. What about this tanker, he says, getting hijacked? These pirates have got to be the most inept crew since Pugwash and his mob, or it's an insurance job. You would think they would have stolen a tanker when the oil was worth something, not when it's at its lowest price for ages. I think it's a set-up job by the tanker owners to get rid of a surplus ship and make some money on a worthless load. It's not a worthless load. It's a hugely valuable load, but I do agree it's considerably less valuable than it was just a few months ago. But it's hugely, hugely valuable. I've forgotten how much they said now, but it's a very, very large amount of money, and I, for one, would be glad of it. Joanna in the city centre, regarding what you said yesterday about the doctor who examined baby P 2 days before his death, It was reported during the trial that baby P would have been paralysed from the waist down at this point because of his broken back. Surely any doctor, whether a paediatrician or an A&E doctor, should have spotted that. A number of newspapers this morning published what you might call the diary of baby P, or not kept by baby P, obviously, but the diary of the incidents, the life of this young kid, and they all start, of course, with born on the 1st of March 2006. Baby P is born, lives with his father and mother in Haringey. 2nd of May 2006, baby P makes his first visit to a GP suffering vomiting. He returns on the 26th of May with a similar complaint. June 2004, the mother meets her new partner at a pub. 17th of July, the baby's father leaves the home in Haringey. 19th of September 2006, mother takes baby P to his GP with nappy rash, but also claims that he bruises easily and is worried that she might be accused of child abuse. Good Lord. 13th of October, baby P, now 8 months old, returns to the GP with bruising on the side of his head and chest. The mother claims he's fallen downstairs. 17th of November, back to the GP, a respiratory tract infection and thrush. November, December, a 32-year-old boyfriend moves into the family home in November or December, nobody's sure when. 11th December, baby P is taken to the GP with a head injury, bruising to the bridge of the nose, sternum, right shoulder and buttocks. Mother frustrated and can't give an explanation. Baby referred to the paediatric department at a hospital for skeletal scan and blood clotting tests. Mother claims baby P's fallen off the settee, been scratched by the dog, and at that point the child is referred to social services. The horrible litany goes on, and we get eventually into May 2007. Listen to this. 9th of May 2007, health visitor Paulette Thomas visits the family home. 10th of May, mother doesn't attend mellow parenting classes. 16th of May, Maria Lockhart, Haringey project worker, visits, reports no problems. 18th of May, baby P to the GP suffering from hives and prescribed antihistamine. 21st of May, social worker visits the home, no apparent problems. 24th of May, mother does not attend the parenting class. 29th of May, baby not taken to appointment at the health visitors centre. 31st of May, mother doesn't attend the parenting class. 1st of June, now 15 months old, is visited unannounced by a social worker, Maria Ward. He's lying on the sofa under a blanket. His face is red with some bruising under the chin, a red line under his eye. The mother claims that the baby's been in a fight with an 18-month-old child. The social workers inform the police, tell the mother to see the GP. The boy's taken to North Middlesex Hospital. His noses have 12 areas of bruising. The mother worried the baby may be taken away, but social services arranged for a family friend to supervise the baby's care. And on and on and on. It makes horrendous reading. If you're near a newspaper, grab it and have a look at that for a diary. 22.5 minutes past 1 o'clock on BBC Radio Manchester. Michelle Adamson has the headlines.
The pound in your pocket or purse is under less pressure than anticipated after inflation fell last month, but at 4.5%, it's still twice the government's target. Manchester's B of the Bank could get spiked. The Sports City sculpture's future's uncertain after Manchester City Council accepted £1.7 million in an out-of-court settlement with the construction and design team behind it. The BBC's Director General, Mark Thompson, has come under fire from MPs following last month's controversial broadcast on the Russell Brand show. And Manchester's weather, a sunny, dry afternoon with highs of 10 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester, 2020 traffic.
In Horwich, Lee Lane at the junction of Winterhay Lane is still closed after an accident which involved a pedestrian. Investigation work now underway at the scene there. It's going to remain closed roughly until around 3 p.m. later on. And the M6 moving well despite the roadworks we have with the narrow lanes from Standish heading up towards Leyland, junctions 27 to 28 in both directions. Anything else you can call me, it's 0161 244 4951. I'm Warner Merchant.
Decongesting Manchester, one car at a time. 2020 traffic.
BBC Radio Manchester.
A very good day to you. 0161 228 2255. Paul in Bolton says, perhaps the organ donor system should be that an individual needing a transplant only gets one if they're already on the register before the condition that determines that they need a transplant was diagnosed. In other words, if I can't have yours, You're not having mine? Oh, dear. That's a little, well, unkind, isn't it? That's a little selfish. And we end up a little coterie of people who are all organised together in order that we might look after each other should the opportunity arise. No, I couldn't approve that. Couldn't approve that at all. Why should it be that way? If you're going to donate something, donate it. Dear Alan, says David, I just wondered, having been in hospital a few weeks ago, why they don't ask everyone if they'd be a donor of the organs. I certainly would. I think I've worn them all out at over 60, but what is the matter once one is dead? After all, they're only going to burn you or plant you. It doesn't matter. After all, it must be the greatest gift that any human being can give to this mankind as they exist in the world. The only reservation is that one might be helped on the way, as it were, to get something that they need. Having said that, anyone wanting to go should be allowed to. Well, fair enough. But the reason they don't ask when you arrive in hospital is the one thing you don't want the doctor asking you when you arrive in hospital is, hello there, welcome. I know, yes, you're having an operation tomorrow. Now, should you die, what do you want? No. We're not going to introduce that, are we? That would be no good at all. Why don't the sailors just bolt machine guns on the side of the ships and shoot at them? I would, said Adam in Brightmet. I think Adam in Brightmet is back referring to the pirates. And I read an interview this morning with one of the naval commanders in the area, because they've sent gunboats. And everybody thinks, oh, great, the gunboats are coming, we'll be fine. And what they've said, this naval commander, is that the amount of sea that they're having to patrol is more than a million square miles. That's how much sea they're covering. 1 million square miles. Now, that's quite a lot. That's the size of the Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea put together. So that's the amount of ocean, if you like, surface area of the ocean they have to patrol. You need an awful lot of boats, probably all the naval patrol boats in the world to cover that, and probably then not successfully. What they have said is that they're going to encourage the owners of these boats to, well, basically arm themselves. So we may well reach the scene where machine guns will be bolted on the side. But what they've said is that they should employ spotters, trained spotters, whose job it is, lookouts, whose job it will be to look out at the sea. And when you see a boat coming towards you, you can make a judgment. These trained lookouts will be able to decide whether the boat coming towards them is somebody coming to give them a jolly nautical wave, as sailors tend to do, or indeed coming to say, right, come with me, laddie, we're having your oil. Well, that's it. Presumably, if they think, hang on a minute, he's come with me, laddie, we're having your oil, then they can ring the naval patrol vessel in the vicinity, who will then launch, I don't know, gun planes to shoot at the pirates or whatever. I don't understand it all. But 1.5 million square miles, that's the upper end of what they're patrolling. It's a very, very long way indeed, isn't it? Would you like a bit of good news? I thought you would. I was jollied by it also. Very, very jollied by it. Wallace and Gromit are back. Oh, yes, they're back on the telly at Christmas. A half-hour show. Not very long, but that's fine. That's it. Half hour's plenty for Wallace and Gromit, I find. But there you are. So half hour of Wallace and Gromit. And hang on a minute. It's called... There's always a pun, of course. A Matter of Loaf and Death. So we can all look forward to that. A Matter of Loaf and Death. Yes, that's funny. So Wallace and Gromit, the puppets, are back. And the loaf, no doubt, will require a bit of Wensleydale and all the rest of it. So all the normal characters will be there, I presume. Oh, here we go. I don't know whether I can't quite work this out, but I did an interview on a programme, according to this person that's emailed me. I've not got a name, but this person that emailed me, I did an interview about how the Bang would shake itself to bits. This is the Be the Bang. That was a few years ago now. I was against the whole idea of the Bang. I was all for a sculpture to remember how the area was, an area that fueled the world at one time. We now need to celebrate what the miners and the engineers did for the world. I don't think that Richard Leese and Howard Bernstein, knights both, should resign for wasting ratepayers' money when they said it would not cost the ratepayers of Manchester a penny. Then they changed their minds. As usual, the people of Manchester didn't get a say. Well, we had somebody on earlier, 2 people on earlier, saying the people of Greater Manchester are being given a say, and they don't want one. But what are you saying that cost a penny? The Be the Bang, I don't know, it's gone a bit pear-shaped, but they've got 1.7 million quid to sort it out, so that's fair. And we need art in our society. We've probably got a bit more street art than we do need now, because some of it's pretty appalling. But that's just a personal taste. But we need street art. I'm not sure that we're any more interested in having statues of dignitaries like we used to. I mean, Albert Square with him there and her and all the rest of it. I don't know that we need that. But it's not a bad thing, is it, to have a bit of street art? Otherwise, the world would be utterly boring. And I remember when they put up that great big one, the Angel of the North, when they put that up, everybody said, "Oh dear God, what do we need that for?" But that's utterly fantastic. Fantastic. And the same bloke, Gormley, Anthony Gormley, he did all those figures standing in the sea at Formby, didn't he? No, we need a bit of street art. We need a bit of something exciting. Simon in Haywood says, I heard a quote from the BBC Director General, Mark Thompson, referring to the Brand Ross controversy. He claims he didn't know there was a problem for a week. A week? Does the DG live in a darkened cupboard at Broadcasting House? I don't know anybody who, 24 hours after the broadcast, didn't know there was a Ferrari developing. I suspect even Wallace and Gromit knew about it before the DG. If Mark Thompson doesn't follow the news, is he fit to be Director General? Well, if he doesn't follow the news, no, he's not. But to say that everybody knew about it within 24 hours is factually inaccurate, Simon. It passed without incident. Honestly, it passed without incident. There were no complaints. No, I tell a lie. There were 2. There were a number of complaints. But virtually none. 2 complaints is insignificant. If I get 2 complaints a day, then I'm wasting my flaming time being here, frankly. So no, 2 complaints is neither here nor there. Well, it is. It's one there and one there. That's here and there. So there you are. But that's nought. No, it was more than a week later. Well, almost a week later, when it exploded in a tabloid newspaper, and then all the world knew about it. None of them had heard it, but all the world knew about it, and it then went absolutely balmy, obviously. But no, the DG didn't know about it, because he's not told about the content of every programme, because, well, that'd keep him quite busy. Mind you, the money is on, he ought to be damn well busy. But there you are. So no, I'm not defending him, just saying that, no, I think he's big enough and ugly enough to defend himself. Man, he could do with a shave. But that's neither here nor there. That's nothing to do with me. He probably doesn't think I'm that pretty. Anyway, but he could do. What is it about these people that don't quite shave? You see, if they grew a beard, like, I don't know, Darwin or something, that went all the way down to their belly button, I'd understand that. Well, I don't bother shaving. It just keeps growing. I don't know what's causing it. It'll grow. I wake up the next morning, it's a little bit bigger. And a fortnight later, it's quite big. And then after a year, it's quite long. After 15 years, like that Darwin one, it's right down to my belly button. I don't know how it's happened. I never did anything. It was the not doing anything that caused it. I understand that. But the person who keeps his beard, the man usually, but 1 or 2 women round here have got them, but the woman who keeps her beard, or the man who keeps his beard, at exactly 1/8 of an inch, shaves every day. Now, why would you shave every day, making sure you leave just a little bit? 'Cause you're a prat. Surely.
Allan Beswick with you on the phones. 0161 228 2255.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Barry in Offerton, by the way, none of that related to the Director General. I think his beard's lovely. Barry in Offerton, but exactly a 16th of an inch all over. Barry in Offerton says, Dear Alan, your correspondents who say the congestion charge will not affect them should read how the bus and train services in their area would be improved. This will not happen if the TIF proposals are voted against. Well, Barry, they're correct in one sense, in that if they don't travel into Manchester, the congestion charge will not affect them. However, there will be an effect if the TIF proposals deliver what they claim they will deliver. There will be a beneficial effect if they do what they say they're going to do. I have no way of knowing whether they will or whether they will not. Stuart in Newell Green, hiya.
Hiya, Alan.
What have you got?
Well, the caller just prior to the news saying that the congestion charge wouldn't affect him.
Yeah.
I live in Bagley.
Right.
I live near the M56, and I see all the major supermarkets. I won't name any. You can guess who they are. And they straddle the M60 and 56. Now, are they going to be exempt from congestion charge? Their vehicles, their Pantechnicons?
No, they're not, as far as I understand it.
So I wonder whether they're going to pass that charge on to the consumers at their supermarkets, and therefore it will affect almost everyone.
I suspect the answer to your question is yes, but, and it's quite a serious but at this stage. The supermarkets all have branches in inner London, and when their lorries go to service their branches in inner London, they have to pay the congestion charge. But frankly, because they have national pricing for their wares, so they can do national advertising for their wares, the price of their goods has not been noticeably affected. The average shopping basket in supermarket A was £20 prior to the London congestion charge. After the London congestion charge, where all their lorries had to pay to go into the city, I suspect the price of the same basket of goods was £20 and a millionth of a penny. And the same will apply here with the national supermarkets, because they work their prices out on a national basis, so no, it won't affect them in any appreciable way. However, there are other services that will be affected and will have to pass that cost on. Of course they will.
Yeah. I mean, the petrol tankers that crisscross the motorway service. But to reduce congestion and to reduce the cost of the congestion charge, are you going to move congestion onto A and B roads?
I don't quite understand that question. I know it's my fault, but I don't.
Well, are people going? Companies going to avoid motorways and put the transport onto B roads and A roads, the minor roads?
I don't think that would avoid it. When you travel into London, you pay it however you get in. Because you pay it for crossing a line, as it were. Now, the process of paying, it may be different, I don't know, but I don't think there's going to be a road you can take where there won't be a need to pay. Otherwise, you're implying quite accurately that if that was the case, there'd be queues 5 miles long to avoid it.
Yeah.
So there aren't going to be such roads.
Oh, well, I've got my bus pass, so...
I'm glad to hear it.
Have you got yours yet?
I have indeed. I have it in my pocket as we speak. I've not used it yet.
You've not got your eating allowance, have you?
Now, there's no need to be snooty. I've got to wait till next year for that. Yeah. Apparently it was a few days out. It is an outrage and a scandal, but I'm looking forward to it.
Good.
Have a good day, Stuart.
Bye.
0161 228 2255. And many people have said this before, and that's not to diminish Dave saying it, but if Baby P had been a cat or a dog, I'm sure neighbours, friends and the like would have had a far quicker response from the RSPCA to remove the injured pet from their clutches. Probably the mother would have got a stiffer sentence for being cruel to a pet and barred from ever having a pet again. So she should be sterilised to prevent any other poor little soul having to live such a sad, short life. It is a point, isn't it? We wouldn't allow a person to keep a dog again, or a cat again, or even a flaming goldfish. That's one of the punishments, isn't it? They are forbidden to allow a person to have another pet if they've been cruel to one in a really bad way. They're forbidden. And yet, have a kid, and everything's fine. Nobody cares. Mark in Sales says, I couldn't bring myself to read past day 17 of the Baby P diary. To me, I could tell he was being abused by day 10. I feel sick, he says. Why am I seeing more and more blokes wearing shorts and sandals as if it's summer? It's November, for crying out loud. They're all idiots, says Ian in Knutsford. It's hard to argue with that, isn't it? 20 to 2 on BBC Radio Manchester. News headlines. Michelle Adamson.
The cost of living fell last month for the first time in more than a year. It's thought the drop in the price of petrol and food are the cause. There's a possibility that Manchester's B of the Bank could face demolition. The City Council says it's one option that's being considered since it accepted £1.7 million in an out-of-court settlement with the construction and design team behind the sculpture. The BBC's come under fire from MPs following last month's controversial broadcast on the Russell Brand show. The Director General, Mark Thompson, has admitted that he didn't know about the problem until a week after transmission, but denied that he was slow to act. And Manchester's weather, a sunny afternoon, dry with highs of 10 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester, 2020 traffic.
In Horwich, Lee Lane is still closed at the junction of Winterhay Lane. It's because of the accident, and the accident investigation work now underway. A vehicle was involved as well as a pedestrian, and so the investigation work now taking place. The road is going to remain closed until about 3 p.m. later on. Problems with the trains as well because of a vehicle which has hit a bridge at Hathersage. We've had some delays, and it's up to about 45 minutes on all services. East Midlands are affected, Northern Rail, Transpennine Express services as well, mainly between Sheffield and Stockport. Anything else, you can call in. It's 0161 244 4951. I'm Mona Merchant.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports with Joanne Smith.
Good afternoon. Altrincham will be hoping to emulate fellow non-leaguers Curzon Ashton by knocking out league opposition in the FA Cup tonight. They face Luton, with manager Graham Heathcote warning his players not to think the replay will be a formality.
We've got a tough task. They're a full-time outfit. They've got some good players. They've had a lot of injury problems themselves, so I'm not disguising that fact. But a few of them have come back now. They had a good win on Saturday. They've got a far better away record than they have at home, so that tells me that we're in for a difficult night. So we've got to be guarded, as well as making sure that we've got enough attacking options to actually, go to win the game.
Well, it's a huge night also for Droylsden's players who'll be doing their day jobs today before focusing on their replay at home to Darlington tonight. A crowd of around 2,000 is expected at the Butcher's Arms. Paul Quinn is a Droylsden's fan. He's known by most as Stroller. And Paul, how are you feeling ahead of tonight?
Very excited, Joe. Very excited. It's just an extension of the first game. And if we play as well or better than we did in that first game, then we've got a chance.
I mean, what did you make of the first game? I know Dave Pace said that you were the ones who played it to feet rather than booting it upfield. Do you think you've got a real chance of getting through and facing Chesterfield?
I think we have, if we play to our strengths, which are on the floor. We were quite surprised with the way Darlington played. Really, I came away, and I know I wasn't on my own, saying that we expected a lot more from them, and I'm sure we'll get more from them tonight as well, so we have to be prepared for that. But if we play to our strengths, then yeah, it's the FA Cup, anything can happen.
And there's such a furore around the club at the minute. What's it been like around the club and in the town? Have you been down to the stadium at all?
Just a bit of a buzz. It's unbelievable. It's still a little bit quiet at the moment, but you can just sense it, and over the next few hours it's going to build and build. And I just really hope for the club, for the players, for all of us regulars, that we do get the crowd we anticipate tonight, and they do us proud.
I'll put you on the spot, Paul. What's your predictions for tonight? A victory?
I'm not predicting. I'm just hoping for a win.
Well, let's all hope indeed. Thank you very much, Paul. That's Paul Quinn, a Droylsden fan, hoping for the best tonight. You can hear coverage of Droylsden against Darlington and all the night's FA Cup action in the all-new Manchester Sports live from Droylsden from 7 tonight. That's with Ian Cheeseman. Elsewhere, of course, it's Stockport against Yeovil at Edgeley Park. Oldham play Cheltenham at Boundary Park, or Rochdale entertain Barnet. Nemanja Vidic is convinced that Manchester United will show their true title credentials in the second half of the season. Despite recording their biggest win of the campaign against Stoke on Saturday, the Reds remain 8 points adrift of Chelsea and Liverpool. But Vidic is staying calm.
It's always, I think, it's about the second half of the season. It's a more deciding game when you come more pressure, when is the 1 point is going to decide the winners. But we need to take every point we can, and in the end of the season to be close to the first place.
The FA has played down talk of a rift between manager Fabio Capello and the Premier League clubs over the release of players for tomorrow's friendly against Germany. 8 first-choice players, including United's Wayne Rooney and Rio Ferdinand, will be missing due to injury. Sales Andrew Sheridan will start for England against South Africa at Twickenham on Saturday. The Sharks prop was doubtful with a neck injury. Meanwhile, coach Martin Johnson makes just one change from the side that lost to Australia last weekend. Wasp flanker James Haskell replaces Leicester's Tom Croft. Meanwhile, injuries have forced South Africa to delay naming their team for the match. The Springboks will assess their players and announce the side tomorrow. Ricky Hatton says that a good performance on Saturday against Paolo Malignaggi could see him being touted for a rematch with Floyd Mayweather next year. And a plan to put back the first test between England and India by a day to allow the India captain Mahendra Singh Dhoni to play in the 2020 Champions League final has been ruled out. India were willing to offer the ECB incentives to agree to the change, but the head of the Indian Premier League says Dhoni will play in the test match.
The next live action on the Northwest's biggest sports station.
2 of our non-league teams and 3 league sides are in FA Cup action. We've got it all covered in the all-new Manchester Sports from 7 o'clock with Ian Cheeseman.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Paul in Oldham says these boats already have lookouts. It's very easy to board a moving boat, Alan, even with lookouts. These parents are well armed as well. It's big money. It's certainly that. That's Paul in Oldham. Mike, also in Oldham. Hiya, Mike.
Hello. Good afternoon to you, Alan.
And you, sir.
It's in response to John from Wigan saying that it won't affect him, the congestion charge.
Yes.
Well, it certainly will affect John in Wigan because my particular job is a courier. Now, when I get charged for coming into Manchester in and out, these charges won't come out of my pocket. Eventually, they will come out of John's pocket. And also, the service vehicles, delivery vehicles to shops, surely in the end, it's the customer that will be paying for these extra charges. So, in fact, it will affect everybody within the Greater Manchester area.
Yeah, there will be that effect, without a doubt. He won't have to pay it personally, but the cost... I mean, I presume you will organise your work day so that... Well, they've now said, haven't they, you're only going to pay it once per day. Once you cross going in or once you cross going out. But having said
that, when you look at it over 12 months, you're talking probably an average 1,200, so the campaigners say. So now that 1,200 has got to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
We can't withstand it, so it is eventually going to come out of the customer's pocket.
Yes.
And people should be aware of this. If somebody wants the TV aerial or the washing machine serviced, these people have got to come from somewhere, and it could well be that they're past that community charger spot. Now, if they do, they're going to be paying £10 extra or £5 extra for their washing machine and their TV to be serviced.
Well,
I mean, a lot of people should take this into consideration.
I suspect it won't be £5 every time you get an aerial, because a guy will do 3 or 4 aerials in the patch, and he's only going to pay it once a day. But that 1,200...
one area, he could do say 6 in one area, and then the area he goes into where John in Wigan might be, he has to go through it, and poor John in Wigan, who thought it wouldn't affect him, has got to pay the £5 extra for his aerial.
Well, yeah, but the point I'm making is that, and I think I'm right in saying this, that the £5, the figure that's currently being bandied about, will only be paid once by the driver, however many times the driver crosses that border.
Yeah.
He'll pay once per day. So if he does 5 aerials in a day, we could argue it's very simplistic mathematics, but if he does 5 aerials in a day, then the cost of each aerial will go up £1, not £5.
No, but it is to set an individual as a small shop, £1,200 over 12 months is a lot of money, and that will be eventually passed on to the punter.
Well, of course it will. Any costs are going to be passed on to the punters, and yes, the cost of transport in Greater Manchester, the cost of motorised transport in Greater Manchester will increase. Of that, there is no doubt.
Yeah.
It will increase.
Not everybody will be able to go before 9:30.
Indeed so.
You know, the other thing about it is you could get the people that make the cornflakes. Now, if their workforce has got to go through the congestion charge, they might take it upon themselves to give them extra workers more money to pay this charge.
All those things are possible, yes.
And of course, that means that John, when he gets up in the morning and has his cornflake and think, you know, I'm all right, Jack, this isn't affecting me, every time he has a spoonful of cornflakes, he's going to be paying towards the congestion charge.
As he is if they increase taxes in any other field.
Yeah. The other point
Then we have to come down. That you're right in saying that all the increased cost to business will in some way be passed on to we the customers. There's no other way for it. That's how it is. That's how the world works. No difficulty with that. But somebody has to pay for the improvements in public transport if we are to have them.
Absolutely. And it always comes down to the customer at the end of the day. It is always passed on.
Well, it can't be anybody else. Who else would you expect it to be?
This is the point I'm making, Alan.
Indeed.
The other thing I'd like to make, if it's possible...
But hang on a minute, just before you make that point, let me just examine that point a step further. I don't hear you arguing that we shouldn't build hospitals, because even though I'm never ill, the cost is passed down to everybody, because we all have to pay taxes. I don't hear you arguing that we shouldn't mend the roads, not that we do that much, because that's passed on to the public through taxes. We know that the costs of life are distributed amongst all of us.
Yeah, but the reason I'm making this point is the fact that John didn't seem to grasp this point in Wigan. He seemed to think that it wouldn't affect him. I mean, that's a big wider thing going into hospitals and the roads. We're actually discussing the congestion charge, aren't we now?
Well, we're discussing the congestion charge, but you introduced the concept of the collective paying it, and I understand that concept and offered you back that we have that as a principle of existence anyway.
The other thing I'd like to bring into it,
please do,
is that once the congestion charge is in, if it has been accepted by the general public, then when any increases and things like that, people will have no say in. Once it's in, they could start changing the goalpost.
There's no arguing with you. Yes, they could. And what we know for sure is that, no, we don't know for sure, but what we're all prepared to predict is once it's in, there might be increases in that charge over the period of its life.
Plus, they could change the goalpost. They could change the area.
Well, they could do what? Well, changing the area might be a bit tricky, but yes, they could, because whenever you put could into a sentence, because I'm a fatalist, I will say yes, that is always the case. They could. And one thing we do know is even when the debt has been paid, the £1.5 billion, more or less, pound loan has been paid, that won't be the end of the congestion charge, because the congestion charge will continue to fund further improvements in public transport. In other words, it will continue, apparently.
Could I just make one final point?
Please do.
If possible? I also think it's the thin edge of the wedge, this, because what you'll find, if it is introduced, and all this money is being raked in with the congestion charge, you might find places like where John lives in Wigan, where I live in Oldham, that these town councils who they're not behind the door when it comes to collecting money off people, they might think, now that is a damn good idea. So let's make a charge for coming past Union Street into Oldham. So people in Oldham Town Centre, I mean, it could happen.
Well, it could indeed, and we may well see it. No other local authorities have yet applied, as far as I'm aware, for...
They'll wait.
Well, they're going to wait and see how it goes.
I'm sure they'll wait.
What we do know is that the government is still considering road pricing. Now, what the concept of that is and how it would be rolled out if ever it was, I don't know, but they are certainly considering and experimenting at some point with road pricing.
Yeah, I think from past experience, when you think recently, as regards, say, refuse collecting, how one council starts something off, and then everybody jumps on the bandwagon.
Yeah, or even the dustbin lorry, but one is forced to say that good ideas, like bad ones, travel quickly. Good on you, Mike.
Yeah, nice to speak, Alan.
And you, sir. Marion in Blakely. Hi, Marion.
Hello, Alan.
What can we do for you?
All right. Baby P.
Yes.
I know it's everyone's thoughts, and I wish it would make as much meetings and God knows what as a congestion charge. However, could I make a suggestion that all social workers, it should be the rule of thumb, they should be older women and had children of their own. There's no deceit whatsoever in a child, and especially of that age. If he's sick, he's sick. If it hurts, you know. And as a mum and a grandma, I know, and so does every other mum and grandma, apart from the horrible people that have done what they've done. How many times did you say to your mum, you know, I want to go to school, and she looked at you and said, yeah, you'll be fine, off you go. You just instinctively know when a child is sick. And I'm appalled, I can't tell you how angry I really am, that 60 visits, social workers, doctors, nurses, trained people, and they've ignored a child with injuries like that.
Let me ask you a question, Marion. Why do you think those people need training?
Because I think they've got to live in the real world. And
No, bear me a second. You just used an adjective there. You said trained people. If all it needed is for you to be a good mum, to be a social worker, why would you need training? You wouldn't need any at all.
Well, no, exactly. And that,
but they do need training.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, I do think that mums would pick up a lot more. Because you've had children of your own, and
but that
you
doesn't.
know.
I'm sorry. I mean, I can never ever speak from experience because I can't be a mum, even if I wanted to be. But I'm sorry, becoming a mother doesn't turn you in. Doesn't give you some special insight. It might give you some insight into your children. It might give you some insight into other people's children. But to be perfectly honest, all those horrible scallies that are serving prison sentences and all those horrible individuals that are raping people and murdering people, all of those, believe it or not, had mothers.
I agree, Alan. I
agree. Mothers aren't magic. Mothers do a tremendous important job, just like fathers do, and indeed those who aren't parents. But frankly, if somebody said to me, I want to be a social worker, what experience have you got? Well, I was quite a good mum. It's not enough. It's a more complicated job than that.
Yeah, no, I don't. I think we're both missing the point. I don't see how anybody could go into a house and it be viewed that many times.
Let me
with
try and
any qualification or no qualification.
Let me try and explain something to you.
Injuries.
You would have gone into that family and you would have seen a child with injuries. There's no question. You would, undoubtedly. So also did the social worker. The problem is the child injured. The problem is, how did it get injured? And what can we, the social workers, do to change that status? And that's where the difficulties start.
Well, OK, and I know that taking them into care isn't necessarily the answer. I appreciate that point. But my God, Alan, you know, all right, as one little example in comparison with the rest of it, including the broken back, a fingernail ripped off. I've recently had something that's brought my fingernails off. Thank God it's better now. I wouldn't like to tell you how much pain I was in.
I know how much pain it is,
and
but...
it must have registered with one of these people.
But no, look, if I looked at your finger now, I don't know how long ago it happened, Marion, if I looked at your finger now, I might be able to calculate in my mind. I might be able to observe that your fingernail was ripped off. What I won't be able to do is to know how. I'll have to rely on a witness. Let's see who the witness is. Well, in the case of a baby, the witness is the mother, or the father, or some other adult. Not the baby. The baby can't tell you. All we know is it's got its fingernail ripped off. That's not enough. That's not enough. All the facts that we've been reading about were presented to the DPP, the prosecution's office, and they said there wasn't enough evidence to prosecute. At first, once the kid was dead, there was a lot more evidence. It's not as simple as just noticing. It's dealing with that's hard.
Well, we've really, as a society, we've got to do something.
Marion, I agree with you there. We've got to do... you can tomorrow if you want, Marion. I would love you to tomorrow, but right now I've got to go because Becky is champing at the bit. See you tomorrow. Ta-ra now.
Have a listen to some of the great new music released this week. Plus meet someone who goes to work as you go to bed. Tonight...